Hey guys, welcome to the Featherstik podcast. I think we're recording here. I've got the record button here on the audio and hopefully on the camera, so hopefully we capture all this. I haven't done this in a while. We're in the studio here. It's very unglamorous down in the basement, but hopefully it's good enough for you guys. What we're going to talk about today is the 2023 hunting season. Today is December 31st. So tonight, tomorrow, we will be bringing in the new year. And with that comes a lot of things that we want to change, want to do better. And that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about. What can I do better in my life, hunting-wise, and also with archery. Because I'm sure you guys are going to share a lot of these things. As far as the 2023 hunting season goes, I'm going to try to recap it real quick. And it's not going to take a very long time. Not because I'm going to cut the story short at all, but because there wasn't much of it to begin with. The big thing that happened this year in 2023 is I went on my first elk hunt. First archery elk hunt, first elk hunt, period. Being from Wisconsin, it was a whole different game for me. This Western hunting thing is just a complete world of its own. All right, it's not whitetails and corn and tree stands. It's mountains and wind and weather and not knowing what these animals are doing. And I found it to be very difficult, especially as a newbie. So most of the stuff I'm going to share with you is things that I did wrong. Okay, because I can't give you advice on what to do right yet, so I'm going to tell you what not to do instead. I think that's the easiest way to go about this. So as far as what happened this year, we did some archery elk hunting, me and a buddy, Curtis. We were in Idaho, and to be honest, the trip was kind of thrown together last minute, so that's where we started off wrong. Okay, this should take a lot of planning prior to if you want to be successful, or at least that's what I got out of this trip. That's one of the lessons that I learned. You can't just wing it. All right, you gotta prepare. I was prepared as far as archery is concerned. I was feeling good with where my bow was at, how I was shooting, but as far as actually getting into where the elk were and giving myself an opportunity to actually get a shot at one of those elk, that was not part of the plan, apparently. So it should start now. You should start planning right now where you want to go. You should have multiple locations picked out and really just take the time. Learn as much as you can in this off season, in the winter. Learn about elk. Learn about how to find elk. Learn about e-scouting. Plan out some scouting trips for the summer. All those things are going to set you up for success. Now, I am not the one to talk on where to find elk or how to e-scout or any of that. So you guys are going to be along on the ride with me this year as I try to figure out that aspect of the game, because obviously what I did this year was not good enough. As far as what happened to us, we went out for a couple days looking for elk. And it was definitely more of an elk hike than an elk hunt, because we did not see a single elk the entire trip. Our trip, we planned about, I think it was 6 days we planned to be out there. We ended up only being out there for 4 days just because we had no idea what we were doing, and we were getting pretty discouraged, and we had to cut it a little bit short just because we were not in the right area and we had really no backup plan for what to do after that. So that's what ended up cutting our trip short, which is what I don't want to have happen to you guys. All right, I want you to get the most out of each trip that you go out to the woods. You only get so many Septembers, and you should maximize that time in September hunting and not driving around aimlessly like we were. All right. Would I call this trip a success? We didn't fill the freezer, all right? So in that aspect, it's not a success. But we did learn a ton, even in the short amount of time that we were out there. And it all comes back around to that planning and preparation ahead of time. We did hear some elk bugling at night, which was cool. They were in a unit across the highway where we couldn't hunt, but that was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had in my life, because I've never heard an elk bugle in the wild before, or really period. I mean, you hear it on YouTube videos and stuff, but to actually hear a bull bugle was got the goosebumps going for sure, and really sparked my excitement to get better at elk hunting. In those 4 days we were out there, we did a lot of walking, just kind of randomly, not knowing where we were going to find elk. I learned after the fact that my ideas of what thermals were doing in the mountains were not quite right. I always just figured in the morning, as it's getting warmer out, those thermals are going to be coming up as the hot air starts to rise. So better to be, up high in that situation. But what I didn't think about is if the sun doesn't come out and it's a little bit cooler in the morning, those thermals are not coming up yet. And we spent most of our time in the morning up high, kind of looking down into these bottoms. And if there were any elk there, we probably spooked them out just with that. So that could be one of the reasons we didn't see anything. We were also way, way out there. I can't stress it enough, to not get eyes on a place before you go is hard to begin with. Public land hunting is hard. To not see the place before you go is hard. And then to not really have any plan once you get there is also hard. So if you can not do those three things, if you can plan ahead of time, you have a place where you're going to go. You've got a plan for if that spot doesn't work out, what you're going to do in that spot, and then where your plan B, C, D, E, and so on is, you're going to have a lot better chances of actually getting into some elk, because these are migratory animals. Okay, so they're not always in the same spot. They could be someplace one year and now they're not. They could be there, a week before you get there, and now they're not. They're constantly moving. So the biggest, I would say, lesson that I learned from elk hunting this year is that you need to be mobile. And we were definitely not mobile enough. We just kind of stuck with where we were at, hoping that they would come to us, and that's just not the way to do it. You gotta drive around, you gotta move around, however that is, whether it's on foot, on four-wheelers, dirt bikes, e-bikes, the truck. You gotta find the elk first if you want to get into them. So that's one thing that we're gonna do different going into next year, and it just comes down to a lot more preparation. So already I'm getting into the planning process, figuring out what are my spots next year, when am I gonna get a chance to go and look at them. Got to try to find some different types of terrain, up in the mountains close to agriculture. You gotta have a mix, okay? Just some variety, you gotta diversify a little bit if you want to find success in the elk woods. That's the biggest takeaway I had for this year. I guess that's enough talking about the 2023 season, because there really wasn't much to it. All right, that was the only hunt I went on. Unfortunately, didn't go back to Wisconsin at all, and tried to get into some whitetails. Didn't do any bear hunting. Didn't do anything exciting. That was really it. Had a lot of stuff going on this year. Sometimes that's just how it is. All right, had a new baby right around that time in the fall, so we had a pretty busy fall, even though it was not full of hunting. But this next year, I plan on it being quite a bit different, and hopefully just work on my wood skills a little bit more, trying to really dial in this elk hunting, this western hunting game. Some things that are my goals, I guess, for 2023. Number one is fill the freezer, okay? January is National Carnivore Month, and I always like to participate. And this year I have an empty freezer of meat, so I'm going to have to be going to the grocery store to get the meat this January, which is unfortunate. So next year I hope that's not the case. I hope I can fill the freezer ahead of time. On that same kind of note, did a lot this winter as far as fitness. All right, the mountains will kick your ass, and I thought I was in pretty good shape, but I was definitely huffing and puffing and cramping up out in the mountains this year. So this off season, I put in a lot of work to put on some muscle, some strength. And now, as we get into the spring, I'm going to try to build up my cardio a little bit more and keep on pushing that into the summer. So hopefully next fall, it'll be a little bit easier on me out in the mountains. For filling the freezer, hopefully going to plan a couple more hunts. It'd be nice to get an elk this next year. I don't know if it's going to happen. I think my goal for this next year is just to get into the elk. All right, have an opportunity at least to see some elk. That would be cool. We heard some this last year, so I think the next progression from that is seeing some elk, and then hopefully getting an opportunity to actually shoot an elk after that. So I'm going to put a lot more effort into planning out my elk hunt. Really want to go back to Wisconsin this fall in November around the rut time and hopefully get some meat in the freezer. And I miss hunting whitetails in the Midwest. There's something special about it for sure. I think about my kids getting involved in hunting. I'd like to get them more involved. Thinking about my childhood, like that was sitting in the stand with my uncle, with my dad, being around the outdoors and hunting all the time as a kid. I was spoiled. Like I grew up on 40 acres where I could go outside and go hunting whenever I wanted to. The first buck I ever shot with a bow, I saw it outside our backyard window, and I went outside and stalked the thing and shot it at 2 yards. So not everyone gets to grow up like that, and I think growing up like that and also having 80 acres of hunting property that I could go to really just spoiled me and probably even made me a little bit cocky on my hunting abilities, because out here, I mean, it's different. It humbled me for sure. And even after, selling our hunting land and moving from that house where we had 40 acres, I had to resort to public land for a couple years in Wisconsin. And even that was difficult. Very little success. So it comes down to that planning and preparation once again. So already this year, planning out Wisconsin, planning out what I'm going to do out here in the West, in Washington, in Idaho. Hopefully maybe even get some whitetails out here in the West. That would be cool. I'd like to try out some bear hunting this spring. I think that's also a good opportunity to do some scouting for elk. So that's kind of one of the plans that I have. And then a pronghorn hunt somewhere out here in the West is another thing I'm looking forward to in 2024. So stay tuned. Hopefully that stuff will happen this year, because filling the freezer is definitely a priority. Getting the kids involved now, that's another big priority. And I think, my oldest son, he's going to be 7 here pretty soon, and getting to that age where I really want him to experience some of this stuff on a deeper level. He went gun hunting for whitetails with me last year, 2022. He had a really fun time. We didn't see anything. We didn't have any opportunities, but he had a blast. And I don't want him to miss out on that. So we're definitely going to try to get him, maybe some of the other kiddos, involved a little bit more this year. I am an archery guy. I think that it is the most accessible way for a lot of people to hunt. You don't have to buy a gun. You don't have to worry about ammunition and places to practice shooting your rifle. It's really easy to get your hands on a used bow, some arrows. For a long time, I was shooting just, bows that I got at a garage sale and arrows from Walmart. And especially in the Midwest, you're super capable of killing deer and being successful inside 20 yards with that kind of equipment. Out here in the West, you might need a setup that's a little more forgiving, a little more accurate at longer distances. But I really think bows are the way to go. Now, with that said, as far as getting kids involved, I don't know if that's necessarily the best route to take, because I think about my childhood and how I grew up. And at a very young age, around the same age my son is right now, I had a BB gun in my hand and I was hunting squirrels and rabbits and little birds out in the backyard. And that was really what spurred, my love and passion for hunting. So I think I'm going to have to start investing in some BB guns, some 22s, some 20 gauges, just to get them outdoors more and enjoying it. And then hopefully they'll kind of follow my footsteps and start loving the bow and arrow a little bit more. But 2024 is going to be the year of the kids, getting them involved. Let's see, what else we got to talk about here. Yeah, overall, learned a lot in 2023, just in research and shooting my bow, in the small amount of time that I spent out in the elk woods. There was a lot of lessons learned, and I'm hoping to share a lot of that with you guys this next year. Hopefully later this month, I'll get out the video from our elk hunt in Idaho so you guys can see kind of what we were dealing with. And I'm hoping to put out one of these podcasts at least once a month just to check in with you guys, talk about random different things. But the videos are going to be a little bit more consistent in 2024. I'm kind of putting my foot down on that, making it a priority to get better. And I hope you guys can get better with me, because I'm learning something new every single day, and I'm trying to absorb as much as I possibly can to make myself better. And hopefully that'll make you better as well. With that, guys, I think we can wrap up this first podcast. I know that there probably wasn't a whole lot in there that was super interesting to you guys, but I just wanted to talk to you a little bit and let you guys know what the plans are for 2024, so you guys can keep up with me, see where I'm at, and hopefully we can all enjoy a better 2024 than 2023, because I got a lot more hunting that I want to do. All right. Thanks, guys.